So let's take a look at AutoProxyGen, and we're going to accomplish the same, not same results, but we're going to complete the process. We're going to create the proxy and the host type map providers, but there won't be the problems with it. So our first step, which is to define the object model, is already done because we built the host, so we have the old exe still hanging around. So we're going to go ahead and open AutoProxyGen. And our first step here is going to be to input the file locations. Just like ProxyGen needs to know which files, AutoProxyGen needs to know as well. So we go into our shape app samples, we get our exe. AutoProxyGen asks for an output file, and that's where it's going to store all of the messages and warnings from ProxyGen. I'll also call that ProxyGen output. Again, we'll need to have a descriptor file, so we're just going to use the same descriptor file that we did when we were doing this manually, and we will overwrite it. And we need to specify our proxy file, and we're going to have the host type map provider file move directly to where we're going to be using it from. I guess we deleted that. Okay, so now that we have our file locations specified, we will consume the host, and we don't want to use the existing object model descriptor file, so we're going to edit it ourselves. And the first thing you'll see here is the output from ProxyGen, which is stored in this output file if you need to go back to it, and a message that all of the structs have been excluded. You can turn that on and off through the options. Then we will see in our excluded list box that all the structs are listed. If we go to the structs tab, we will also see that they are excluded. So now the two modifications that we have left for our descriptor file are to mark the application class as an entry point, which we do just by clicking the entry point checkbox. And then we wanted to test that workaround by excluding the first property, which is active drawing. So to get to that, I'm going to click on the display button here, which takes all of these tabs and populates them with the methods, properties, events, and base types, implemented interfaces of the application class. You can also take a look here to see kind of in a larger view what's included in the class, and get a little bit more detail if you need it. So we'll go to our properties now, and we're going to exclude that active drawing property. You'll see that added here. So our modifications are complete, and we're ready to create our proxy file. And as you see, anytime one of the commands is being run, it is available for you here in case you need it. Now let's go back to the shape app sample. We'll get a message that our object model is updated, so we want to load it, and our proxy file is updated. And we'll add the host type map provider in just a second. So let's take a look at our proxy file. We'll format it so it's a little easier to see, and then we'll look for our application class. As you'll see, we still have that inheritance, and we have our properties here. The active drawing property is gone, but all of the subsequent properties are no longer missing. So that bug was taken care of. And we should be able to compile this, and it succeeded. Now we did move or change which host type map provider we were using, so let's go ahead and delete that and add the one that we just created. And to get this to build again, we're going to have to change the namespace here and this, there are alternatives for how to get around that. You can either use the default namespace that ProxyGen creates everything with, and then when you are passing that to your service provider, just be sure you use the full namespace there, or you can use VSTA, which is integrated into AutoProxyGen, to change that namespace at the end. Okay, but so we've seen through using AutoProxyGen that we have a successful build with the structs automatically excluded and no items excluded that we didn't specify. So now that we've done this successfully once, let's automate it so that it can be done successfully again. And the way we're going to do that is by using AutoProxyGen to create an input file. And let's test the input file just to make sure that the entry points are still coming, the excluded items are still coming, and we're not getting any new messages. We had none when we created the descriptor file, but we did have 2 for references that we would need to add. So we'll clear AutoProxyGen and consume this input file. Okay, so again, no errors for the first command, 2 warnings for the second. We have our application class as an entry point, and all of the items that were excluded before are still excluded. So we'll go back into the sample and accept the updated versions. We'll reformat the proxy and we'll take a look again. We still don't have the active document, but we still have all of the other properties. And our host type map provider file doesn't seem to have been updated. Oh, that's because we're using a different location. So we'll have to fix that in the input file, which we can do right now. These input files are pretty simple. They show the locations of the files to use. They list the entry points, which can only be classes. They give you the option to use the struct rule, which simply excludes them all or not. And then it lists your excluded types and any excluded items which are not types. But we want to change the file, the host type map file that we're using. We can do that here. Okay. So let's save this. And now, instead of creating this using the AutoProxyGen graphical user interface, let's incorporate this into a build event for the Shape App sample. And we do that simply by going to the build events, and we need the location of AutoProxyGen, which I put directly in my C drive, but you can place that anywhere you like. That. And then the input file, the syntax is just \I:, and your input file location, which we'll get from there. And we will go ahead and build this now. We'll see the command prompts come up for the AutoProxyGen commands which are running. We see that our host type map provider has changed, so we want the new version. Same with the proxy and the object model. So we'll format the proxy again and double check. We still have all of our properties. We go to the host type map provider, format that. And as I said earlier, you will need to account for the namespace. I suggest just using the namespace, which is there by default, which is the VSTA host type map provider. But that's up to you. And okay, now that we have the host type map provider updated, there is one catch-22 with this. Because for this sample, the namespace for the host type map provider must be manually changed, you will need to rebuild without running the post build event. However, if you just use the default namespace, you can simply build twice because the second run through AutoProxyGen will produce the same files used in the second build. If you have any questions about VSTA or AutoProxyGen, please contact us through sumsoft.com, where you will find both forums and blogs, or contact us directly at vstasupport@sumsoft.com. And please check out the MSDN documentation at VSTA at the website listed below.